All right, I guess this is going now, Bill. For the purpose of this, my name's Lyle Buck, and I have been invited over to the home of Bill Webb, who is not only a good friend of mine, although these 6 years that I've been with him in the band over at Daniels, but he is one of the men that I know, probably the only man I know, who has a vast knowledge of the old Daniels area. And we have before us the print of the Alberton cotton mills that he gave to the Howard County Historical Society. And in the process of this chat, he's going to help us understand what these things are. And Bill, it's great being here with you. I'm looking forward
Nice
to
being
this.
with you, Lyle.
We just saw most of a videotape that covers a lot of this, but what we want to do is to number the buildings on this copy so that it can be stored in the Historical Society with the one that Bill has already given to the Society for Daniels. Where do you want to start, Bill?
Well, very few people would know what that building was. You want to start
Okay,
at?
shall we call it number 1 then?
Yeah.
That'll be building number 1. And it's just to the right of the little building with the cupola on the top. This one.
The building number 1 was the original store. In later years, I don't know exactly what year, they built this building here, this 3-story building, actually.
Shall we call it building number 2 then?
Yes.
Okay, this is the large building at the end of the bridge going over the little river. That's building number 2.
They made that was a store. Then the
All 3 floors?
No, the top floor was the library hall. They had a library there, and then I think they had about 2,000 volumes there. My father was a librarian. He worked at regular time in the mill, and then at night he would be the librarian. People would come there and get books, and then on Saturday night we'd show silent movies.
Oh, great.
We had one machine, with one reel would run about 10 minutes. We'd stop, and then the girls would go up the aisle selling ice cream, while my brother and I would, in later years, would change the reel.
Yeah, somebody playing the piano?
Not regular, no. But we used to have a big time up there. We have serials and westerns, you know.
Was that done in the library floor or the one underneath?
No, in the library.
In the library.
The library only took say about a third of the top floor. The rest was the hall where of course we had a stage there, and they had 4 or 5 changes of scenery. My father used to get people to act in plays, you know. They used to have some very good plays there. They had some good actors. And of course, some people around Hollifield and Quaker Hill, you know, used to come to church, and he would recruit them for the plays. And then we had changes of scenery, and then had a big movie screen.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
And really, that was the highlight of the week, to go to the movies.
In these days that you're talking about how many people were resident in the Daniels area?
I would say usually it was pretty consistent in the town itself, about, I'd say, 600.
Oh, that's big.
At least I'd say about 600 were employed and worked in the mill. Of course, the James S. Guerin's son bought the town. The original owner was Mr. Ely, and they called it Ely'sville. and Gary bought the town. Not sure the exact year, but when you own the whole town, you change the name. So he changed the name to Albert. I thought it was after his son Albert. But somebody else said they had a corporation that they had a Mr. Albert in the corporation. So it could have been Mr. Albert, and then Gary named his son Albert, and then named the town Albert.
Okay, so what was on the second floor? But you have the library on the top floor, the store on the bottom floor.
Actually, the store was the second floor. This is a basement of the
okay.
store where they stored the supplies.
Oh yeah, you can almost see the grade going down.
Yeah,
there.
the grade there.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to work in the store in the summertime, and during vacations.
Very good.
But
Okay, what's next?
well, of course, this is the main mill building here.
We'll call that number 3.
Yeah,
A main building there.
was a main mill building.
All right. Main mill, I put that down. Good enough.
See, they had the
Okay.
They had I think the spooling room, the weaving room, the spinning room, the carding room, anything that would take to convert cotton into
Mhm.
duck. And that was their main product, duck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what that building was. I sort of have a feeling.
Okay, the
Let me-
building you're looking at is the one just left of the one that we started with. The one next to what was the first store.
What-
We'll call that building number 4.
I sort of feel that was a church. It
Okay.
seemed to me somewhere that I read something about a Presbyterian church,
Okay.
but I've never seen that building
That-
in my time.
That building wasn't there in your memory?
No,
Okay.
and
Where's the building that was the Episcopal building that you were talking about?
that they made the Episcopal church.
Yeah,
Well, see, this was the original store,
yeah.
and then when they built the store over here, they made this original store a parsonage for the evangelical minister.
Okay. That's building number 1.
Because my mother used to talk about visiting over there, Simon Peter Reamer. He was
Mhm.
certainly destined to be a preacher, wasn't he?
Sure
Simon
was.
Peter Reamer. And she used to talk about how wide the doors were and how high, and I couldn't understand, And then I found out that was the original store.
Uh-huh.
You see that
Big wide door.
big wide door there. And then in 1879, the evangelicals asked the Garys to build them a church. But that doesn't show in this picture, but up here on the hill.
Yeah, on the left-hand side.
He
up on the hill.
built a church there in 1879, and then there were a few Episcopalians in the town, so they thought they ought to have a church too. So they asked Mr. Gary to build them a church. So he asked the evangelical minister to move into one of these houses up here for parsonage on Upper Brick Row, and they took the what was the former church? I mean the former
Former
store,
yeah.
and then the parsonage, and they raised the walls. You can go down there now and see a little difference in the mortar work where
Mhm.
they added onto the wall, and put a steeple in front and a Sunday school room in the back.
Mhm.
And but it's only the Episcopalians that was in 1885, and there wasn't enough Episcopalians in town and in the surrounding territory to keep it active, so they closed it.
You remember the name of the Episcopal church? Well, that was before your time anyway.
St. Albans, I think.
St. Albans, right. I think you're right there.
And it stayed closed from 1915 to 1918 when Gary asked the evangelicals to move down from the church on the hill down here because they had this Episcopal church was heated with steam from the mill. Where the church on the hill, they had to haul coal up there on a two-wheel horse cart.
That's quite a hill to haul it up.
So then in 1918, the evangelicals moved down into the Episcopal church, which was closed in 1915.
Okay.
And so the evangelicals worshiped there until 1940, when C.R. Daniels bought the whole town. When you own the whole town, you know, you can change the name. So and Daniels asked the evangelicals to move back up on the hill.
Did they use the same building up there that they were in before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was built in 1879.
And that's still the one that we have up there?
Yeah, still, and essentially it's the same as it's always been. And also it doesn't show here. I have a picture of someplace. He also built a church for the Catholic, which was down on Lower Brick Road.
Now you've been talking about Upper Brick and Lower Brick Road. Are these the houses over here on the left side of the picture?
These are
next to the railroad track?
Yeah, this is Upper Brick Road.
Okay, we'll call that number 5, Upper Brick Road.
Row, R-O-W.
R-O-W. Okay, and those were workers' houses there?
Yes. And of course, this is the mansion house here.
Number 6?
Yes.
All right. Mansion house. And I suppose the boss, whoever it was, whether it's Alberton or Daniels or Ely, they all lived there?
At this time was the Gary family.
Gary family.
There was a big family, and I think they became fairly wealthy, especially after during the Civil War, and then they moved from here into Baltimore, and then the manager, whoever was the manager of the mill then, lived in the mansion house.
Okay.
But even in my time, the Garys would come out in their car. One little fellow with a father, and 2 6-footers or more were the son.
An imposing family.
Yeah.
You talk about your time. What would be your time? You were born there, I understand.
Yeah, I was born there in 1912.
In which building? This one?
No.
This one?
These my explanation is this. This is the bridge going over to Baltimore County.
You're okay.
Now, there were no houses here.
We're on the right-hand side of the picture now.
These, I think the lithograph put the houses here that were actually down here. He didn't have enough room.
Move them a quarter mile off to the right side of the picture, huh? Okay, we get the idea.
About so I was born in the first house.
In the first house.
On Lower Brick Row.
Let me call that number 7. House number 7 on Lower Brick Road. Sounds like over the rainbow here. Lower Brick Road. Lower Brick Row. Okay, so there were 5 houses there. Is that about right?
Well, there was more than that.
There's more than that.
That's probably all I could get in there.
Okay.
Some of the pictures, some other time I could show you some of my slides.
Yeah, you have some wonderful slides too, Bill.
They don't show up on that video. It's too bad she didn't have
It's better than nothing. I
Yeah.
learned a lot by
Mhm.
watching that video.
Um,
Okay, now I don't know when this lithograph or engraving or whatever it is was made. The only thing that I see here that could give us a hint is the train. The train looks like a locomotive that's similar to the General, which was used during the Civil War and probably used up into around 1880 or
Mhm.
so. So I would think that that might be the span when this was made. But someone who knows when Alberton took over would probably be able to funnel it down a
I
little.
think I could probably look it up, but I got so much stuff I just
Yeah.
can't put my hands on it.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine Gary probably took over somewhere else in the 40s.
Hmm.
That's a guess.
Okay, what else do you think we need to know about this picture?
Well, this is evidently a picture of the original schoolhouse,
Oh,
not
okay.
not the one that you saw.
Yeah, no, this was the one way on the left-hand side in back of the tree. We'll call that number 8. Original schoolhouse. Okay, what do you know about that?
Well, you ever hear the Racobites? My mother and aunts they used to talk about belonging to the Racobites. I think it was a temperance organization.
Before my time.
But that, because my mother said her first day in school, the first grade, that said at recess, she ran away from the school and crossed over the railroad track and down to this house
Okay.
where she lived. So,
Your mother lived in this house. Okay, we're going to make that number 9
well, this is the double house. So she lived on the side.
on that side. Okay.
That was a Fryfogle house, if you want to put that down. Fryfogle. That was my mother.
Fryfo.
Gle. Fogle.
Okay.
Means free bird in German. That's what they tell.
All right.
But in other words, she was born in 1882, I think.
Was she
So
born here?
No, she was born up in a railroad house about a mile above.
Okay.
But I figured this was a school when she went to the first grade, which would be something like around 1888.
Okay.
She'd have been 6 years old. And a number of the people who lived in Alberton, they remember what we call the new houses.
Mm-hmm.
There were 7 houses, like the row houses in Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
exactly like them. And they tore some of these houses off down in here and built. This is where those new houses would have been, where these lower houses.
On the upper brick row.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was about, I don't remember that, they tell me that was about 18. And this was the original setup of the B&O Railroad. It went straight through the town and made a real sharp bend here
Mm-hmm.
and uses
Here on the
this-
bottom of the hill where the present church is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the same road that we use.
Mm-hmm.
That big cliff, they cut that down. And they couldn't keep, it only lasted about 5 years. They couldn't keep the river away from the railroad.
Yeah.
So, in around 1835 or something like that, they, where those abutments are now, right below the church,
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 abutments. Actually, I think there's 3, one on each side and one in the center. They built a bridge there. Then the railroad is on land for a couple hundred yards, and then they had to build another bridge. what they call the two Elyville Bridge. This is still Elysville. Of course, the river comes down like this, you see. Well, actually, it comes down like this. There's a river here. So, and that lasted until 1868. Both of those bridges were washed away, but they rebuilt them. And then, of course, they tore these four houses down here.
Okay, those are the houses that you see towards the end of the railroad. What number are we at here? 8, 9, 10. This is 10. Those houses were lived in by workers some more?
Yes. See, no one could live in the town unless they worked in the mill.
Okay.
And of course, that originally layout with a real sharp bend, coming up like this, and then they straightened it out a little bit to get it away from the river. But then they got the engines are bigger, the cars are bigger, and around 1900, the B&O went over the whole railroad. Well, see, it started from down there in Baltimore all the way up to Point of Rocks, and they what happened here? They made the third setup more or less straight across here.
Okay, well, that would help in dating this lithograph, wouldn't it? Because when this was done, those houses were still there.
That's right. So that would be before, I think it was 1900 when they straightened it out. That is probably when they tore those houses down. Anyhow, this was probably the second setup. The third setup, the way it is now.
Okay. Well, now it's on the other side of the river, isn't it? The train track?
What's this again?
Where is that? Where the train track is now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This is
that's
the
right. I was
same,
wrong.
and it goes straight now. And they cut through the mountain here.
Right.
Because the terrace that I asked said something to Russell Rudisill. Russell, look at that. That's a man-made terrace over there. Oh, he said, that's where they had the donkey railroad track. Carried the dirt away from all the dirt they had to cut to the cut. They call that the cut.
Down at the Historical Society, they have some aerial views that show the tunnels. There are a couple of them in there. Well, Bill, you've done a super job on this. Let me see, is there anything else here that you'd like us to be aware of? We still don't know what that house is, but that was before your time.
Some
House number 4.
some place I read something about a Presbyterian church, but I've never been able to confirm it.
Yes, I've run into that as well. And I have it in my list of churches, but I don't know much about it. I was kind of hoping we could tell more about it.
I know the Episcopal Church here was, I think it was St. Albans. Now, maybe I can look through some of my stuff. Would you like to borrow any of my stuff, or?
I probably would at some time. I'd dearly love to.
Of course,
not right now.
This is Patapsco River. This is Howard County. This is Baltimore County.
Right.
And of course, the house that I have pictures of that the Ellicott built, of course, that's back in here someplace it doesn't show.
Was this bridge washed away in the big flood not too long ago?
Yeah.
When did it go?
Well, they've had several different bridges there. The one that Agnes washed the last one away.
Mhm.
Uh, and I have pictures of the last bridge. What Agnes did, the last bridge they built, they just tore down the bridge and used the regular abutments they had
Mhm.
before. So Agnes picked up the bridge, turned it over, and dropped it, and the abutment just picked it right up off the abutment. And
Well, would you be willing to let me get copies of some of your pictures, Bill?
absolutely.
Because I think they would be wonderful to have down in the Historical Society.
I imagine I have a lot of stuff that the Historical Society doesn't have. Catonsville Library has a lot of my stuff that they've taken pictures of,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a few things. I have a record of what Catonsville has that I don't have copies of, which I intend to get sometime. And I don't know whether did you ever meet Mike Vickery's wife?
Yes.
You know, she's she volunteers over there at the Catonsville Library.
Mhm.
I think she's there once a week, and she's just as sweet as can be, and trying to help you, and
Well, maybe we can do some inter-county swapping.
yeah, well, she's they have good copy machines over there, and she had made the copies of what I have for Catonsville, and then she's given me some copies of stuff that Catonsville have. I have a record of what they have, and I don't. But one of the best things they have is a big picture on the wall. Now, have you ever been over Catonsville room?
Yes.
Have you seen that picture of
Mhm.
Albert? Well, that is about the best view of the town. I think that I don't know whether it's a regular photo or not, but every time I go over there, I got to look at that.
That is a great picture. Do you happen to know where this one came from, the one that we've been working on? Did it come out of a book, or was it hung up somewhere
I
over
don't
there?
remember. See, I've been collecting this stuff over the years, and
Mhm.
I can't remember where the original come. And I can't remember whether the lithograph I have is it seems to me it's larger than this, but I'm not sure.
It may well be. Well, Bill, I do want to thank you for giving me time on this. Your wisdom is great, and your memory is fantastic.
Probably not about history.
Oh gosh. Well, anyway, it's been a delight, and I know that you enjoy talking about it,
I do.
and I enjoy hearing about it, and it's good to have some of your knowledge and your experiences put in a place where others can take advantage from them too. Thank you very much.
Does the Historical Society have much on Daniel?
They have some. I've got quite a bit on the Daniels Church. Very little on the Episcopal Church. Very little on the Presbyterian Church. A little bit on the Catholic Church. Now, where was the Catholic Church located while we're looking at this?
Well,
That was built after this, I think, wasn't it?
yeah, that was built not too long after the one that built 1870, around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But Gary built that too.
We did.
And these houses, say, are down here,
Right.
and further down, a couple hundred yards below the last house in Lower Brick Row, there was a Catholic church up on the hill, built very similar to the church where we rehearse in now.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1926, I remember well, that church was struck by lightning and was destroyed. And the last time I was down there, that was about anywhere from a third or half of the walls are still standing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a graveyard in back of it, and I copied all the names that was in the graveyard. But the last time I was down there a couple of years ago with my brother, some of the stones had been removed. Now, I don't think the people was, I was up to then I was under the impression that the Catholics didn't just abandon the graveyard, but that hadn't been done, hadn't been touched for a year and year. Well, what the Catholics did, see, they never, my knowledge tells me that they never had a resident priest at the Catholic Church in Alberton. I still refer to it as Alberton. Of course, they had the seminary, the Woodstock College up at Woodstock.
Sure.
And the priest used to walk down the railroad and hold.
Okay.
After the church was on the hill the Catholic Church on the hill was destroyed by lightning. I don't know just how long. Right after that, they used to hold Catholic service in the hall, the library hall. It was like my father and I and my brother. We after the movie was over, we would have to clean up, you know, and then the Catholic priest would come in and get it ready for the service on Sunday morning.
Okay.
And then they built a prefabricated church, just not too many, maybe 50, 60 feet from the road that follows the river. Now, sometimes we could get together, we could park down there at the Hollyfield, and then all together it would be about a mile walk. Well, halfway up the road, I could show you where the picnic used to be, where what we used to do with the 4th of July picnic. We all go up to the church on the 4th of July, and then we'd line up, we'd have a red, white, and blue bunting, and march down to the picnic, picnic wood, which was about a half mile down the road. Of course, the band used to play, you know, lead. Sometimes all we'd have would be Lester Russo and I would beat the drums, you know, how things, the organization go up and down. Well, we would pass where the picnic woods was, and then a couple hundred yards further, I could take you up and show you where the prefabricated church was, and behind that I should show you the remains of the original Catholic Church. And then a little bit further on, we could walk up and show you where Lower Brick Row started. We'd come to actually the end, and then walk up to where this bridge is. See, we'd be walking up like this, and of course we can't cross here. But we could walk around here, and back in here is what they used to call Calf Hollow. And there were sticks houses there. And then a little bit further on, they used to, some of the people you talk to sometime, they say something about a swinging bridge. There was a swinging bridge halfway between Calf Hollow and Guilford, where the people would not have to walk all the way around to get to the jobs in the mill.
Yeah, so Calf Hollow would be about in there, and Guilford would be back over here somewhere?
Yeah, well, on the other side of the river. I used to wonder where the Guilford name came from, but I've been told that Gary had a mill out in Guilford, Howard County, that was destroyed by fire, and I think that's when they built the Guilford.
Now, it seems strange that it would be a Guilford in Howard County and a Guilford in Baltimore County at the same time.
Well, this was just a row of houses. In other words, we had the upper brick row, the lower brick row, the green, and this was Guilford.
So it wasn't a county or
no, it was
anything
all
like
part
that.
of this
It's a housing development.
housing development owned by the James S. Garrett Son Cotton Mill.
Yeah.
So the people who worked for the mill in Guilford in Harrod County, they brought the name down there.
Very good.
Instead of having being an upper brick row or lower brick row or middle brick row, it was always known as Guilford. That's how it was built up, thinking in the 18th.
And that's the one that has on the far right the original house put up by one of the Ellicotts.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a picture of those houses. Boy, I've got to get some of those sometime.
You want to spend a few more minutes?
Sure. Sure. What have you got?
Well, I didn't do any looking, but of course I've got all kind of slides, you know, and we got a lot of information.
You are a historical society all in yourself, aren't you?
I should get organized.
You got a box there of what, about 4 inches deep?
Well, that's a little bit of everything. Now,
Let me
this
get
is
my,
really
let me get
not.
my glasses on so my one eye can see.
That's really not important, but that's just a group of the workers.
Uh-huh. Are you familiar with any of them, or are their names lost? I noticed there are no names on the back of the...
I would say the names are lost.
Okay.
I believe that's my Uncle John. It looked like him. But this is a group outside of the church. It's probably on the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
It's right outside the church, the Gary Memorial Church, 1909. And these must be members of the Racobites.
Mm-hmm.
This is also 4th of July.
Maybe it says on the back here what the Racobites do. That's just
No.
1909.
Yeah, it was a temperance organization.
Mhm.
That's all. And this is on the race. You know, we go by right below the church, and the race is all filled in. And this, I used to love to skate. That's me.
Oh, that's good. Playing a little hockey.
And I think over in here is that Catholic church. Well, that's the same thing. But I've got stuff that I could really entertain you with, but I just grabbed this up. So I can.
Well, I don't know what the Historical Society might want to do with this, but they might want to develop some kind of a program that you could be of big help with.
I never knew anything about this, but that must have been my father. Sure looks like him. The Woodstock Swells of 1903. It sure looked like him. And that, I think, I believe it says there's a web in there. This is a picnic down, that was the best camp I ever went to. Up Caramac, up in Pennsylvania, right across the Delaware River from Fred Warren's estate. 3 girls for every fellow. I read this is different pictures. This were the pictures of the older members of the church, 1972.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good picture of the church where we rehearse now.
Oh, yeah. Before they put on the additional building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way they put a decoration for Easter.
What did you do, Bill? Were you, well, you must have been an employee of Daniels.
I only worked in the mill one vacation.
Uh-huh.
There's the old bass player, Russell. Yeah, I guess he was gone before you came.
Yes, he was.
But I'll tell you
Not
what,
very long.
I'll get my straightened all up. I've got a lot of pictures of Albert, and some of them I got from Catonsville. I worked in the store during a couple of vacations.
Mm-hmm.
I was 2 years below my. See, I was Homer, Ella, Gertrude. See, I was the fourth child, and we were all, the six of us, all about 2 years apart. And my mother kept us all back at least 1 year because she said we so small, you know, had to walk up that hill, you know, where we rehearsed with the school in the back. So I was 7 when I went in the first grade. And my sister, she went in, my mother held her back almost 2 years because she went in the first grade. She was 7 years old, but her birthday was in December. So she was doing there in the first grade a couple months, and she was 8 years old. Well, I couldn't understand, might have never understood why, but when I was in the 5th grade, halfway through the 5th grade, they took me out of the 5th grade and put me in the 6th. And I got along pretty good in those 2 grades, but I missed a lot of stuff, like square root and all, you know, a lot of things that you would miss in half of the 5th grade and half of the 6th. But when I got in the 7th, everybody, well, anyway, I caught my sister in the 6th grade. She was actually almost 2 years older, but she was only 1 year ahead of me in school. So I caught her in the 6th grade. Didn't mean anything, you know, to me. In the 7th, I used to getting good marks, but in the 7th grade, I came up with a C average. And everybody was 2 and 3 years older than I was. And during the summertime, I spent a lot of time worrying whether or not to spend the 2nd year in the 7th grade or spend 2 years in the 1st grade high school in Ellicott City. Of course, I figured out later I wouldn't have had any choice. But just in the last couple of years, my older sister was 2 years, she was about 4 years older than I. When she got out of high school, she wanted to go to Ellicott. She wanted to go to high school. When she got out of grammar school there at Albert, her father wouldn't let her. He didn't like the idea. She'd have to catch the 8 o'clock train in the morning and wait down at the station in Ellicott City until 6 o'clock at night.
It's a long day.
A long day, and he didn't like the idea, you know, she being there. I don't know whether anybody else would have been going in no particular years, not. Anyhow,
They didn't have any high school in Alberton?
No, never did. They had, at that time, the Ellicott City High School was fairly old wooden building down near the courthouse. My older brother went there, I think, for a year and a half, as soon as he was 16 in the mill. He wanted to work to get the money. Anyhow, my father wouldn't let my older sister go to high school, and she never got over it. She never forgave my father for that. So, but to digress, a little bit later, I don't know whether she got a little depressed or something like that. he let her go to Strayer Business College in Baltimore.
Mhm.
Anyhow, when I got in the, I went to the first year of high school, I figured I'd have to spend 2 years there. But when mid-year exams came along, if you had all A's and B's, you didn't have to take the mid-year exam. I don't know how many A's I had, but I had all A's and B's. So
no mid-year exam.
no mirror exam, and I really didn't have any trouble at all in high school. But I still miss stuff, square root and things like that. That I never had it, because in high school I took straight commercial course,
Mhm.
bookkeeping, shorthand, typing.
Have you really missed not having square roots?
I don't know anything about it. I took the straight commercial course along with other certain years of English and other things, and algebra you had to take. So I got through high school all right. And of course, after the first year, my sister and I and 3 or 4 or 5 others from Albert, we rode the train, 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. But that was okay with my father, because I was there. My sister was 2 years older, but smaller than I. She was small. So that part was okay. Well, after the first year, we got bus service, which gets the bus right in the middle of Albert.
They went up the hill that we drive up now?
Yeah. And I don't recall you picked up anybody on that trip except the one from Albert. But it would be an early trip, because then after he took us down to they had a new high school.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1925, we were the first freshman class to go in the new high school. That is the building up on College Avenue,
Right.
where they made condominiums out of.
Right.
I get,
Where they had the big fire not too long ago, or several years ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a real nice building, solid, big granite stones, I guess they are. And I went there, and my sister took the academic course, and I took the commercial, because I figured she was going to state normal school, and my father and mother were not quite fixed to send 2 of us to do the upper schools. So I'd been working in the mill, and not in I worked in the mill the summer between my 3rd and 4th year. It was a vacation between 3rd and 4th year. And I was offered a job after I got out of high school, and I was offered a job in the mill in a tying-in, what's called a tying-in machine. Big. You've seen weaving rooms that have the weaving
right.
Machines that have these big warps, and some of the ones I had over there in the mill would have thousands of
Shuttles?
Well, thousands of strings,
Yeah.
And of course the shuttle half would,
Yeah.
but when one of these wharf would run out, they'd have to put a new wharf in, and all the new end would have to be tied on to the old end. And they had what they call a tying-in machine, really a slick machine that you just run it across there and would tie all the end together. So they offered me that job, $5 a day, which was good money then. You stop me and tell you what to.
No,
Anyhow,
go ahead. I'm captivated, Bill.
I figured if I took a job there in the mill, I'd be there the rest of my life. So I turned it down. And the store, of course, I was 16 years old when I got out of high school, and they needed a truck driver. And I got my license as soon as I could after 16. But the truck driver would have to go to Baltimore at least once a week and buy the supplies. And that didn't appeal to me, because 16-year-old kid,
Yeah.
I wasn't up to driving into Baltimore, different places, to pick up all kind of supplies for a fairly large store. It was a company-owned store. So I went into town to look for a job. I went to an employment agency. They sent me to a place out on Baltimore Street, 7 or 800 block of Baltimore Street, one of those small department stores. And of course, I was 16 years old when I graduated, and I would be 17 in September, but I didn't get the job. So I went back to the employment agency, and they sent me to the Century Theater. Are you from around this section?
No, that's a new name for me.
The Century Theater was a Lowe's theater. Lowe's had 4 theaters in Baltimore. They also owned Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. They were the biggest company in
It's a big name
in
even
the
today.
movies, yeah. So as a night usher.
Mm-hmm. Now, where was this theater?
On Lexington Street, between Charles and Liberty.
Okay.
It's torn down now
Yeah.
because for the Charles Center.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have Sunday movies then. So I go to work at 6 o'clock. I think it was 5 days. I get a dollar a night. And I had 2 aunts and an uncle who lived in Hamden. They had lived in Alberton, but they moved into Hamden because a lot of people that worked at Alberton, they'd come to Alberton and learn how to run the machinery, and then they go into Hamden and Woodbury. They had kind of 3 or 4 cotton mills around there where they made more money there. And I had these 2 aunts were maiden aunts and a bachelor uncle. One aunt and the uncle worked in the mill down there on Chestnut Avenue in the Hamden section. And then the other aunt stayed home and kept house. So I took this usher job, and I could ride stay there, with my aunt and uncle, and ride the streetcar back and forth to Century Theater. And then on Saturday, I'd go in at 2 o'clock. That was $2. $2 a day. Of course, this is 1929. And the market crash hadn't occurred yet.
I was going to say, you're pretty
November.
lucky to have any kind of a job
yeah.
about that time.
So and this was a first-run theater. They had first-run movies, most of them Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. They had first-class vaudeville, and they had an orchestra, all union, and they used to play, a little concert.
That must have been a fantastic experience.
Oh, it was.
Did you see Al Jolson and all those guys?
Well, I missed him.
Who else did you see?
Well, I was a chauffeur for Clark Gable.
You were?
But I saw Bing Crosby when he was just one of the rhythm boys
Yeah.
with Paul Whiteman orchestra.
Uh-huh.
And I have a lot of autographs down there to Bill. And who's this guy who's 90-some years old? George Burns and Gracie
yeah.
Allen. I have autographs. Those kind of people, not the movie star, but like George Burns, they were vaudeville stars,
Yeah, oh, sure.
They used to come through practically every year, and all the big orchestras, Paul Whiteman, Phil Fatani, and Guy Lombardo, and all the biggest orchestras. Because this was first-class vaudeville.
Yeah.
And for a boy right from the country, we would handle the Century Theater seated, I think, 2,400, and so we'd have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people in there during the week. And it was quite an experience for me, like
I bet it was.
to see two men come in together, you know,
Mhm.
then two girls, and then so many disabled people, you know, coming in. We had one lady. We used to admit her on a side exit door from a little street called Clay Street on a bed, and would, you know, she opened the
You
exit
wheeled
door.
the bed right in?
And wheeled the bed right in the now. She'd always come in during the daytime when, like in the middle of the week, because when the show would open on Friday, you know, it'd be pretty
Full.
crowded, yeah. And but one thing I always like to tell, I was making $6 a day. I mean $6 a week working the Century Theater. I was paying $1.05 car fare to ride back and forth from the downtown to Hamden, West 34th Street, and I've never figured out yet where that extra nickel. Well, and I was making $6 and paying my aunt $1 a day. I'm paying her $6. The $6 I was making at the Century,
Yeah.
and the $1.05 car fare.
It didn't leave you much to eat on, did it?
Anyhow, I think I did that about 6 weeks, and then I got a day job. That was $14 a week, and then the Depression came along, took a 10% cut, $13.30. But I was doorman, and after a while I was chief usher. Then I got to be assistant manager. And when they would bring an assistant manager from out of town, they would pay him $50 a week.
Mm-hmm.
But coming up through the ranks, like from doorman to assistant chief usher, they just give me enough to be a little bit more than what I was making
They didn't
before.
want to scare you with too much money, huh?
Yeah. So when they made me assistant manager, it was $25 a week.
And you kept going up from there, I bet.
Well, no, that was what happened there. And during the Depression, I never missed a day of work, you know. And I also got two of my brother's jobs there. The youngest, he didn't stay there too long, but then the other, my brother next to me, when I left, he got my job at chief usher, and I think then he got the. You taping this?
Yeah, sure.
He got the job as assistant manager after I left. But we got friendly with the letter carrier who delivered mail to the
Yeah.
Century, and he told us that they're going to have this carrier clerk examination for post office. It was 1935. It's been the Century 6 years, and I liked working at the Century. You know, and it wasn't too bad when you got to be assistant manager, $25 a week. And of course, we used to go around. We could go into all the other theaters downtown, you know, professional courtesy, and the employees of the other theaters we'd let come in. And the three brothers, we put in an application for the post office test. We found out we could go to the library and get copies of the test that had been given in 28. Of course, the one they gave in 35 would be a different threat, but it's the same system. They have a 100 question in one part, and then they had two time, 15-minute each, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was like to have 10 boxes up here, and they have names of 4 cities in each block, and then these 10 and 4, these 40 cities would be in column after column. You know, like 3 column, 1 page, and I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 10 pages.
Check you out on your sorting.
That was and they gave you, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes to study. Like the first block could have been like Baltimore, Washington, New York, and Philadelphia. And when you came across those four cities, you'd put one after. Like if Minneapolis within 10, you'd put 10 after Minneapolis. But I didn't try to memorize all 10 blocks. I memorized about 3 or 4, and you only had 15 minutes to do it and see how far you could go. So when I came across any of the cities in the first 4 blocks, I didn't have to look back at the top. You could look back at the top, but that all takes time. So I got a real good mark on it. It was in the 90s, and of course my 2 brothers, we all took the same test, and I was called in with my brother next to me. He wasn't the athletic type, but he was more the inside type. But my younger brother and I, we were more like playing baseball and stuff like that. So he and I put in for carrier, and my brother, who was just 2 years younger than I, he put in for clerk. And although my brother who put in for clerk, he had almost as high score as I did, but there were college people taking the courses and stuff like that, and like he was further down on the list of clerks than I was on the carrier. And I was called in, I think, with the first group of carriers when they called him in. I think it was about 30 or 40 of us went in one time, and got a job as substitute. Later on, my brother, he called in as a clerk, and he was more chance for advancement as a clerk because there's twice as many clerks in the post office as the carrier. The clerks have 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, because they have to handle incoming and outgoing mail. And my brother, he got to be a supervisor of clerks, and then he was made assistant manager over here at Catonsville, and then later on he was the we used to call it superintendent.